Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. So today, me and Katie are joined by Dane. So Dane is a director slash animator within our short form department here at Blue Zoo. Welcome, Dane.
Thanks very much.
Thanks so much for joining us. I know you guys have such a busy schedule, so we're really excited to meet with you because I feel like we haven't had like a proper opportunity to learn more about what you do at the studio and what your day-to-day looks like. So this is just as exciting for us.
Yeah, it's just as exciting for us. Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. Like, I feel like with short form, a lot of the time, we don't really dive into what you guys do as much as maybe we do long form. I don't know if that's because your projects are short or whatever that may be. So this is really cool. And you've been with us for a long time now, right?
Yeah, 13 years, I think.
13 years. So you're proper Blue Zoo baby.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that term.
Yeah, I didn't use that term before I came in, but here we are now. This is cool. This is really exciting. So Dane, do you want to just talk us through a little bit about what you do now in simple terms?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I'm a director in short form, and kind of a creative lead. And I guess what that means is kind of leading the team of artists either to like my own vision or a kind of shared vision with the agency or the client. Just to make animated content that's normally for commercials or online content, things like that. Sometimes we do dabble in other things like VR and stuff like that, but that's the job.
Yeah, I remember when I first started, I think one of the first big projects I helped recruit for short form was the Beast, the Quill project that you guys did.
Yeah.
And that looks so cool. I didn't quite understand what was going on at first because everyone was like, so this is what we need, guys. And I was like, VR painting? What? And then afterwards I was like, this is amazing. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, that was really good. Yeah, no, well, you did well because the guy who worked with Michael was amazing. Such a good artist. Yeah, that was quite a weird experience trying to direct that one because you always had to put the goggles on and talk about things.
So did you have to work with them on? Like, can you not just do it that? I've never recruited or done anything really with VR. So that's wild. Do you have to wear them all the time?
Well, it was kind of the only way really to review things. It's quite, it's clever. You can have like a kind of picture-in-picture. So it was like a Zoom call, but in like a 3D space. So you could kind of see each other and like gesture and talk about stuff.
Wow.
But you could also talk about like where things were over there. And,
yeah,
it's
fascinating. Yeah, I bet. That's crazy. That was really odd.
It was really odd, yeah.
You're just like, let me just go check this, and you walk over and you bump into a table. You're like, oh god. So, I mean, for those who are listening who don't know what the short form department do, would you like to explain that a bit more detail?
Yeah, sure. So, we're a team of about 20 artists, and we have freelancers as well that work for us here and there on different projects. We work in short form, so it's more about shorter content. Really, it's not episodic work. It's not like long feature work. It's things like 30-second TV adverts, or like kind of pre-roll on YouTube adverts. There, kind of just as popular as TV now. So we do a lot of content like that. In a really broad range of styles. So we're constantly experimenting with new tools and techniques, and it's very fast paced. Most projects last within 3 or 4 months or less, and that's kind of from getting the job to getting out the door. So it's quite it is quite fast, but
much quicker than
quite refreshing.
I bet. And I feel like you don't get to work with as many kind of different styles or techniques as you guys do in long form, right? And it's kind of, I think we see it as quite an innovative space because of the things you do and you develop in there. Is that the right assumption to make?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, we're talking a lot at the moment with the other departments, like our developments team and our kind of like R&D team, to kind of talk a bit more about how we do kind of cross over more because as you say, we'll get a brief in and we're kind of trying to think on our feet and try things and experiment and try and develop tools in a matter of days that or techniques that we could actually use for things. So it's in many ways it's great because we do get this real like sudden acceleration of like learning and testing stuff, and it doesn't have to be perfect because it's really just about what's in that frame for 30 seconds. But yeah, there's definitely room to like overlap a lot more, I think, in future if we can.
Yeah, that's cool. That's exciting.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, they're all, those other departments are up to really cool stuff as well.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, just trying to like pool our resources a bit more.
Yeah. Nice and collaborative.
Yeah.
Did you have you always wanted to work in short form? Or were your goals elsewhere and you've just kind of ended up doing this and ended up really liking it as you've gone on?
Well, no, I guess not. I think I probably, I wanted to be, originally I just wanted to be like an animator. Like I just wanted to be in, working in feature film animation.
Yep.
And then, those kind of goals and things kind of evolved. And I think I found myself wanting to direct more and also get like, I guess, have more experience working with different clients, different people and different styles. And I guess kind of like accelerate that learning a bit more. And I kind of felt like short form kind of offered that more for me. Because, productions, it's, kind of one a year kind of thing. And there's tons you can learn with that. But I think my skill sets were maybe more suited to shorter content. But yeah, I've done a bit of production directing this year with Lego City, just a couple episodes. But yeah, I'd really love to. I think one day I would still very much love to try and direct a feature film.
Nice.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah. Have you found like the shift? Have you found the shift from going from direct to short form content to helping out on Lego, like directing more long form?
Yeah, it was really interesting. I was quite fortunate because I was kind of given the opportunity to basically juggle both at once. So yeah, it was like really different experience, like different different production times. Like short form, we are much smaller teams, and everyone is a little bit more generalist, and you kind of, when you're talking to someone about a certain area, they're both like an artist and kind of like a head of that department, whereas in productions it's like just like layers of hierarchy and different people. So it really felt like a really kind of supported kind of space to work in, and certainly directing really felt like I could focus just on like narrative and that kind of stuff, and knowing I had like this massive support network of artists that could really bring it to fruition. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, just to segue back in, leads us probably quite nicely to how you've ended up where you are. So it'd be kind of quite nice, and we like to ask everybody this, just to get a bit of an overview of your career, like how you've ended up where you are from kind of university, school time, all the way up to now, and what that looked like for you.
Yeah, sure. I went to Bristol University to do animation, and then I was pretty lucky. I kind of was fishing around for animation jobs kind of while I was at uni, and a little bit before I'd kind of made a few contacts at some studios, but it was all, some of the opportunities there were a bit more like running work and things like that. And I think I was keen to kind of get my feet wet quicker. And I applied at Blue Zoo, and they kind of invited me down for an interview. And it was to work on Tree Food Tom, which was like our first big 3D production. And so I managed to land a job on that as a junior animator, and then that was really good. It's really nice. Sort of got to meet everyone and work very closely, and as I'm sure you guys have found, realize how wonderful Blue Zoo is. Really nurturing space. It was really good. And then following that, I worked on another series as an animator called Cupoodle 5. Then I moved into a lead animator position on Miffy. And then after that, I moved into short form. And it was kind of, like I say, it was kind of in pursuit of doing more directing work. I think I kind of just I just felt like I could offer more skills. And I think I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I think just after having animated for a little bit, and you're very much working to someone else's ideas. I think I was just really keen to be more involved in that ideation process and leading a project, and so that was kind of the first step towards that. And then kind of being more of a animator in the department and a bit of a generalist, just from kind of like kind of showing a bit of initiative on projects and just trying to like push things and try things and support the team and that kind of thing. And then I was always pitching on like the short film program that we have at Blue Zoo, pitching and failing constantly. But then eventually kind of I think hopefully I was kind of showing enough of like having ideas and that kind of thing that I got a shot at directing something and leading some more things, and kind of just went from there. And I did eventually win a short film pitch, which was for Ada.
Yes.
Which was in 2019, which was nice because I'd actually had like a couple of years of sort of directing teams experience by then, so it felt like a really nice sort of challenge, but in some ways a bit comfortable, which is good. Yeah.
We still get people talking about Ada when we go to festivals. Like when we went to Annecy and FMX, we had a booklet of all of the stuff from Shortform and the shorts, and so many people were like, "Oh my god, Ada! I remember watching that; it was so good." So there's still a following out there for it.
Oh yeah, that's really nice to hear. Yeah, so it is really weird because when we finished it, it was like we did like there was a premiere in Edinburgh Film Festival, and then before the online release, it was lockdown, and so it was all a little bit weird. And then it got released online. It was really hard to sort of gauge, how it was doing and that kind of thing. But I think
that's so true because you didn't get to kind of live that like reception in person and see how it all went in person. That's fascinating. How did you find making something like Ada and directing in something like that, as opposed to maybe the commercials and the advertising and stuff that you do kind of on your day to day? Because Ada would have been something that was entirely your idea, right?
Yeah, it was really exciting and really nerve-wracking. I think like Tom Box and Blue Zoo, they were so supportive about like giving me like creative reign on that. It was based on a true story of this woman, Ada Blackjack, who'd gone through this crazy ordeal in the Arctic, and I had to sort of figure out how to adapt like a slice of her story into a short film, and it just took a lot of writing. And at one point, it was like 20 minutes long, and then I had to bring it down again. And it was really fun just trying to figure out what I wanted to say with the film, and what felt like an ending that wasn't like over the top, but kind of showed she had changed or something had something had transformed there. And then it was also coupled with using Unreal Engine for the first time with the team. So that had a lot of challenges, and
I bet.
Yeah, so it was
a lot of learning.
Yeah, it was really good, and it kind of went on for over a year, I think, from through the writing to the making, kind of juggling other projects at the same time. But it was nice that we got enough time to really explore it and figure it out. But yeah, it was really fulfilling in a lot of ways. In other ways, it was terrifying.
I feel like that's the tagline for directing in general, though, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It kind of made me feel like I felt like I was really happy that I got to do a short film with Blue Zoo, because up until then as well, a lot of our shorts were quite comedic or slapstick or that kind of thing. I mean, the previous one was actually Ben Steers one, Mamoon, which was a lot more mature. In tone and that kind of thing. And I knew that was kind of what I felt more like inclined to as well. So yeah, it was quite fortunate that the stars kind of aligned for the next brief, really.
Yeah, definitely. No, I love it. It's one of my favourites, honestly, of all the shots. So nice.
Yeah. What was the original brief for Ada? Did they? Because I know when I've been here, it's like a word or a theme, or what was the original for Ada? I'm really curious.
It was tricky because Tom wanted us to tell a true story, like whether that could be like from your own life, someone or researching someone. And it was an interesting one because he stipulated that we can't show any design work. it was like we could show images like photos or that kind of thing, but
Oh,
it was like I think he really wanted us to just talk about what the story would be.
right.
I think it's because sometimes briefs could be one a little bit more on like style or imagery.
Mhm.
You know, it tends to sway people sometimes more than like the
Yeah.
text. And I think he just wanted to try and like just neutralize that for this one, and just be like, okay, just tell the story you want to make, and let's presume it'll look lovely, but let's figure out, you know,
We'll
let's
do our
figure out
best,
what it
guys.
is. Yeah, exactly. Yes, that was good. Again, that was quite nerve-wracking because it's, you know, just kind of getting up and talking to everyone and sort of pitching something that you hope will work, but it's not all been figured out yet, right? You're just kind of trying to sell them on the same thing you're excited about, and then the work comes after.
All the work.
So, you were talking about when you transitioned over to short form. Again, this is me just kind of learning a bit more about Blue Zoo history. But was the short form team always there since you started, or did it kind of begin when you moved over? Like, where was the short form team at that point?
Yeah, it was there from the beginning, but it was always it's definitely evolved as a department quite a lot. It's had a few different names. We called it commercials for a while and things like that. It's kind of, I think there was more. It was a lot more like a lot more. I think servicing agency work to start with, and it slowly became more that we were representing directors, you know, in house and that kind of thing, and kind of leading projects more and kind of pitching ourselves more in that position. So that certainly changed a lot over the last sort of like 5 or 6 years. But it's always kind of been there in some capacity, and I think, I mean, when I moved across, it was still kind of the former, and it was just about, for me, just kind of getting interested in more, doing more on a project, and exploring different styles and that kind of stuff. So kind of fortunate that we have kind of like moved it more towards directing, representation, and that kind of thing. It's kind of worked out quite
Good
nicely.
timing.
Yeah.
How did you find that transition, kind of going from long form episodic to short form? Was it quite a big adjustment, or was it plain sailing?
No, it was quite a big adjustment, and it's kind of, definitely. And you kind of have to, like I say, you have to kind of wear a few more hats on projects, and be quite adaptable. I mean, there's different challenges for everything. Like, with productions, it was always like, it's quite unrelenting, like getting, if you finish work early, there's always more to do, all that kind of thing. And it's like, and you're always trying to do something different with the character animation and push things constantly. But, and whereas in short form, I think it's more about like adapting to different things more, and kind of changing your style, changing your technique and approach and that kind of stuff a lot more. So it's just kind of changing that mindset a bit. You couldn't have you couldn't kind of like refer to the same bag of tricks as much.
No. Nice. Cool. So, and we always like to ask everybody this as well, but is there a particular kind of like moment or experience in your career that kind of that you remember is quite life-changing, or is is a particularly important moment for you in your career?
I don't know, that's tricky. I kind of feel like it's funny.
So many to choose from.
Well, no, definitely not. I kind of feel like so many projects blur it together as well, because we often finish one, start another, and it's quite hard to sort of nail down a moment. I mean, Ada, I know we've spoken about it, but I think Ada was quite a big one, just because I really desperately wanted to do a short with Blue Zoo, and it was such an undertaking and such a learning experience. And like I said, Blue Zoo were just so supportive, and me kind of stretching my creative legs with that. I kind of feel like you don't really get that very often. So that's probably been the biggest one so far.
I always wanted to ask, and Grace, take this out if I'm not actually allowed to speak about this. But I wanted to ask Dane how you found, because you also recently got involved with the picture book program that we're running.
Oh yeah,
right.
It was really nice. It was such a cool opportunity. Like, it kind of came out of nowhere, and I had so I've had 2 girls since lockdown. So my eldest was 2 when the book opportunity came along. So I've been reading a lot of children's picture books, and it was really, I think, I got really excited about like, pitch something, worst case scenario, I've, got a little story that I can tell her, best case scenario is like this nice printed book that can live in a bookshelf. That was great. And it was quite a long process by the end. But I think it was nice that it was, because I think it really gave us time to think about them more and push them more. And the illustrations, especially, like I was working with Aurélie Lisan Banovalu, who's a super, super talented illustrator. And it was such a lovely collaboration, because we were just talking constantly about like the characters and the colors and the layout and all this sort of stuff. And while I was working away at the story, and we had an opportunity to we had like a mentor for like 5 sessions where
that's cool.
We could just talk story and just kind of, it was really nice. And I had Jill Evans, who was really like brutally honest.
I really need that.
It was great. I mean, I was really up for like more than anything as well. It was really about making something for an audience. Like sometimes with short films, obviously, we want to make them accessible, but there is a little like, tiny pretentious artist in all of us that just wants to make it the best it can be, even if no one else thinks it is.
Even if no one else agrees.
But with the children's book, it was like, no, this first and foremost needs to be like, for them to enjoy and understand and everything. So she really got me to think a bit more in that way, and and like with the flow of the pages and everything. So that was really great. It was really nice. It's just kind of a nice experience to tell a story in a different medium, really.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just really interested in it because it's quite new it's something new for us in terms of career development and all of that. So like for you, was it mainly because you had Aurélie? For you, was it like you focused on the story, the ideas, and then Aurélie did all the artwork? Is that kind of how you balanced it?
Yeah, pretty much. We had some crossover when it came to sort of layout and things like that, because often a bit like storyboarding, you end up stripping out more and more words once you kind of know what's in the picture. So it was a lot of Zoom calls where we kind of hash out things like that, and we talked about the design and the tone of the book and things like that. But I think Aurélie did a tremendous amount of work.
What was that like as well? Just sorry, this is purely like my curiosity. I'm really interested in this process. What was it kind of like just working the two of you as opposed to maybe a bigger team that you're, not that Shortform is a massive team, but a bigger team than you're used to, because it's literally just the two of you and your mentor, say. What was that like?
Yeah, it was nice. I mean, it's kind of it is quite a contained project, even though it can take a long time. I guess it didn't really, I don't know. It's an interesting question. I don't think you want too many voices for something like that, and especially in my book, it was, it's quite a simple story, and it actually began when I pitched it. It was a slightly different kind of story, and that sort of evolved. It was actually probably a bit sillier, the original version, but I don't think the narrative had been thought through enough.
Right.
So it kind of changed a bit more. But it was I think we collaborated really well. Like I say, I'd love to do it again with Aurélie, because I think we both talked a lot about like our tastes and what we liked, and we just kind of clicked quite a lot on things. So it made it a lot easier just to talk about what should happen and what it should look like.
Yeah, especially when you have a reference, because I find that a lot, especially between like designers and board artists and directors, is if you've kind of seen the same movies or you have the same taste in like genres and stuff, it's so much easier to get that idea across. And it's like, oh, do you remember that one scene from this film, like halfway through, and they're like, yeah, I do. Like, it's just, it's nice when you find that person to click with.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I kind of feel a bit like our short form department now. Like, like I say, it's changed a lot over the years. Like, people have left and joined, and for various reasons. And I kind of feel like the team we've got now, everyone is really in sync with each other, and really, it feels like a really like nice kind of informal kind of atmosphere when you're doing a project where everyone can kind of be honest, but you always know it's kind of like coming from quite a nice, positive place. so I think that's really helped us grow.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think my voice is getting so? Do you think that doing projects like this outside of your day to day helps you in your day to day? Like, does it, make you learn, grow, kind of keep you learning? As I suppose is what I'm trying to say, and keep you improving in ways that you maybe wouldn't have if you hadn't done it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for me, I try and do a lot of well, when my kids are asleep, I try and do a lot of stuff, like short animation tests or things, short films if I've really got the energy. And yeah, and it all really does inform what I'm doing at work. And for that book, like I say, it was a real kind of short kind of learning curve in
Yeah.
narrative storytelling, which we don't do a huge amount of really in commercials. There's storytelling, but it's in a more kind of a much shorter kind of contained way. There's always kind of like a message, or there's like an arc to what's happening, or a setup and payoff, that kind of thing. But not as many like ups and downs and kind of character motivations necessarily driving it. And again, even though my story was quite simple for the book, it was nice to be putting some of those things that I've been reading about so much, to practice and trying to do that. And I'm sure that probably helped when I got to Lego City. Of course we have script writers and people developing those stories, but when you're directing it, you are obviously translating those things and adapting certain things, and understanding the page is really important to do that, and especially when it's once you get into all the acting and the tone of things. So I think that really did help.
Yeah, cool. Good. I think we always tell people, don't we, Lauren, like when we meet anybody that's wanting a job with us, be them junior, senior, whatever, to always just keep doing other things and keep learning and growing and doing that. So it's great to hear that you're still doing it, this late on in so many different ways. Like, I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I think, well, it's just kind of, I don't know, I think so many people in our industry are in it because they're really passionate about it, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly.
And, even the projects, even if you're loving the projects you're working on, sometimes there's still like, 100 other like itches you want to scratch, in terms of ideas you've got or anything like that. Or so, yeah, I kind of feel like it's kind of hard not to kind of dabble in stuff if you've got the time and the energy at the end of the day.
Yeah. If you can do it.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah.
And also, this probably does not fit here in the like flow of this episode. However, just thinking about it just then, like how much in short form in your job, how much creative control do you guys have over what you make? I think that's quite interesting. What a client gives to you as opposed to what you bring to them.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good question. Yeah, I mean, it varies quite a bit. We've got some clients where we've done like kind of more repeat work for them. Sometimes there is like a very clear brief that comes in, and it's much more about like, us like, executing that and, figuring out like, script to screen and leading the team that way. And then it's a lot of, reviews and feedback and back and forth and managing clients and trying to make sure that like we're compromising in the right places and we're kind of doing the best work that we feel we can, as as well as hitting the mark for them. So those ones are those can be really tricky because it isn't like you're just off running away with it. And then there's other projects where it's a bit more of a broader brief, and it's an opportunity to really pitch a whole concept. Normally among like two other studios. So you'd be putting together like an entire sort of treatment deck, and that might include like style frames, maybe animation tests, mood boards, script ideas, everything. And then if you get those, then it really is kind of like, okay, we have chosen you guys because we love this vision, and we, you guys should execute that to how you imagine, and we'll just, make sure our product's in the right place, and they're more hands off, and it's a lot more kind of just kind of keeping things on track and like tonally on track and that kind of stuff. But those ones have a lot more creative control from us.
Yeah. Interesting. So it's quite not balanced, but there's a bit of everything in there. There's no like set way.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of why we've landed on a bit of a role of director / creative lead, because
Yeah.
in the former case you are more creatively leading the team, but not to your own vision completely. It's a bit more it's far more collaborative with the agency or the client.
Yeah.
And then the directing is when it's more kind of led from our side.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, interesting. Cool. I feel like just looking at the time, we should probably move on to some questions. But first, can I just ask really quickly what your favourite released thing that you've worked on is in short form?
I was going to ask that. That's a good question.
Oh man, I don't know. That's tricky.
Other than Ada.
Yeah. I think
your favourite.
No, I think commercially so we've done a few adverts for Glenfiddich.
Yeah.
And they've always been really fun, because I think we've done 4 or 5 now. And we're working with Love Creative, who are like such a great agency to work with. Like, they've got really good creatives there, really good producers, and they're just, really collaborative. Yeah, for each of those, we've had like an illustrator, kind of almost set the art direction based on like the packaging and the bottle and that kind of stuff, and then it's kind of a case of bringing that to life, and that's always really fun to just sort of like go down a rabbit hole of shots and what the sort of narrative's supposed to kind of be within that and that kind of thing, and they've all been a little bit different. The first 2 were quite similar. The third one was a different artist, and then the fourth one, which we did last year, was a really big shift, because it was slightly more like kind of hyper-real look to it, that was more kind of set in like this forest area, and it's all based on this artist called Raku, who does these like amazing kind of physical sculptures using like natural elements that only really last like a few days, so he has to assemble it and take a photo of it, basically. So it was kind of using that as inspiration to kind of build everything, and that was really nice. That was such a good one that like the whole team was really like hitting the mark on all of it, and it was also nice because we had to still kind of pitch on that, because even though we had such a good working relationship before, it was like quite a drastic style change, and I think we hadn't demonstrated enough of that, so we put together this big test with like one of the elements, this butterfly, and it was kind of like how it kind of comes to be, and then it flies off at the end, and I think it gave them like a lot of trust in us, and then so it was kind of, that felt like a really like fulfilling project from beginning to end, and then it's been received really well. So that's nice. Pretty good one.
Yeah, I love the really Glenfiddich ads. They're amazing, and so it's also the only thing that like my stepdad can relate. So I'm like, I woke up blue soon. He's like, okay. So we do number ad. He's like, okay. So we did the Glenfiddich ad. He's like, what? Like, he loves whiskey. So I'm in his good books with that one.
Yeah, that's good. I do like whiskey.
Okay, let's get into some questions. So I think most of these are from Instagram. This is the part of the show where we absolutely butcher everyone's usernames, so bear with us. Should we stick to the highlighted ones, Katie?
Yeah, for now, I think so.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan. Okay, I'll do the first one. So this is from Nate Worrell 98. So what challenges did you face on your first project as a director?
So like I said earlier, I feel like a lot of them blur together. It's quite hard to do. But I distinctly remember one project that was quite early, which was this thing for Cartoon Network, these hex bugs, which are like these little toys. And I'd kind of been sort of more of a generalist up until that moment, and the head of our department, I remember, called me into a meeting room and like in this kind of very Hollywood fashion dropped the script in front of him and was like, right, you're doing this one kind of thing. And it was like, you could take this from beginning to end. And so that was quite a fun learning curve, because it was very hands-on, kind of doing a bit of everything, and kind of like storyboarding it and leading it, and that was the first time really working with clients like directly, so it was a lot of learning about that. And that was quite a challenge, because you realize how much pushback there is, and also you get like, you feel so much like I don't know, if you get any kind of imposter syndrome, I think it's then, because you're talking to these people that they probably do think that you know what you're talking about, but you can't help but feel that they don't. So it was a lot of learning about that, and it was a lot of like figuring out like where to compromise, like because you know especially when you're first starting, like you kind of feel like I'll just do everything that they ask to change, and that's quite that's not necessarily a good idea. And so it was kind of it was a lot of figuring out how to communicate what you think, and do it in a respectful way, right? Like because at the end of the day there's always going to be feedback, there's always going to be some sort of pushback, but if you can build up a good rapport with the client, it's going to help you later when there's like bigger issues and you've got them on side, and I think that was quite a big learning curve, which I'm still trying to figure out.
I think that'll always be the case when it comes to any kind of relationship management. I think you're always going to learn, because there's always going to be something or somebody new, isn't there? So it's kind of like, oh, gotta learn this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think for like when it came down to directing like a team of people a bit more, I think one of the big things was learning about how much to push people and like try and find that balance, because I actually feel like I was the other end of that the way I first started, because I think because I had been animating for 5 or 6 years, I really empathized with the artists whenever I would ask for a change, or if we got feedback from the client, it was like, do I have to say that to them and things like that, and it kind of slowly kind of became more about like, I guess it's kind of a bit about like, okay, trying to anticipate that, trying to prepare them for changes, or where we can be flexible, or where we can get things actually signed off, as best you can. But then I think it's also just sort of, recognizing that everyone knows that is part of the job, like changes will happen, feedback will happen. And, similarly to dealing with clients, it's just making sure you've got, a good relationship with the artists, and you're not like this, hammer coming down. You're kind of, you're kind of in it together a bit more. But yeah, that was quite a big challenge.
Yeah, definitely, I bet. So next we have, from our very own, actually, Laura Naughty. If you don't know Dane, she's a storyboard artist. She said, for me, sometimes a good idea gets too big and ambitious. How do you keep shorts short?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, like I said, for Ada, that got really big, and then had to get kind of reined in a bit more. I guess, I mean, the lesson for that one was really just to try and like focus the idea a bit more, and what you want to say, and maybe there's a simpler way to do it. I mean, different ideas do kind of call for different scopes as well, don't they? I guess it's also about like, where can you economize? Is it just to keep it achievable? Is it the runtime, or is it the style that you choose? What's the most important part of it? Is there another way to tell the same story? Or I guess it's presuming you're under some kind of limitation or scope. For me, I think it's probably figuring out like, what's the most important aspect to this, and is there another way to do it, and that kind of thing. But yeah, it is tricky though. I mean, I think I've just been trying to think about some ideas so long now. If I try and think about like a feature film or something, I'm like, that's too much to keip in my head. I don't know how you do that.
That's too big.
Like, yeah. It's like, sure, the story has to be over in like a minute, right?
We've only got a minute. Only a minute long.
Yeah.
So I suppose you have the opposite to a lot of people now that you've been doing that for so long. That's really interesting.
I'd like to be able to do some bigger stories, but I think,
yeah.
But the brain space, that's the thing, isn't it?
yeah. Well, I think it's also like, even like, I'm trying to write this short film at the moment, and I've been racking my brain over it for ages, and I've got like an outline. I kind of understand like the themes and where I want to go with it, but as I'm writing it, I have to kind of, I feel like I'm sort of like holding it in my head, like I'm picturing every shot, and I'm picturing like what's happening, to just sort of like be like on the cusp of like what, like emotionally what's going on. And if I get distracted or something, I'm like, what was happening? And to do that with like a feature length seems insane to me. It's like, how do you know how you're feeling? Like, how do you just dive into the middle of that? I don't know. I always have to run through it, and then I don't know. I'm sure that will change, but
And then do you always get like epiphanies with it? in the middle of the night or at the most like inconvenient time. Because for me, whenever I'm thinking of an idea, nothing during the day when I'm actually working on it or other things. But then as soon as like I'm in bed or I'm half asleep, I'm like, that's such a good idea. I need to write that down quick. Like, are you the same?
Yeah, sometimes I think like images and stuff sometimes trigger things for me. Like the way I was kind of stuck a little bit of like part of the style of this idea, and I saw something the other day, and it was something really strange, like really abstract, of like these people in like a little box in like this sort of like almost like apartment of blocks, and it didn't make me want to like do that, but it made me it suddenly made me think like, oh, I could really abstract the world that the story's going on in, you know, and then that made me go, oh yeah, that would mean that I could explain like the way that they do that part of the scene will make that a lot clearer, and oh yeah, I wouldn't be limited to that, and so that kind of thing happened, and that was really fun. But yeah, a lot of the time I do feel like I try and keep at an idea for a while. Like I often will like pace around my kitchen as well and just talk to myself out loud about it, and that sometimes triggers things. I tried doing like a little voice memo on my phone just to be like, you know, just because I knew I was about to ramble and I thought this might be useful to refer to, and then when I stopped it, I'd been walking up and down for 2 hours.
Oh my god, 2 hours!
You should get one of those walk pads. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes thinking about it differently, or like just going through like a different character's perspective or something like that. Like I feel like there's a few like tricks to maybe like, you know, spark ideas. But yeah, I agree. Sometimes they just happen, don't they?
Yeah.
Brains, huh? They're weird.
Yeah.
I think it's my turn. What softwares should be used for a 3D animator other than Maya? And I feel like that's topical, talking about short form.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely say Blender. Yeah, I mean, I used Maya for the longest time. Like, I think I got like a copy of it when I was like 12 or something, and was just like, you know, I think I heard they'd done like Golem with it or something, or Ice Age, and I was like, this is the last program I ever need to learn. Like this version right now is it. I don't need to learn anything else. And yeah, and we obviously use that. That's kind of our primary program here at Blue Zoo, certainly for productions. But yeah, I started getting into Blender a couple of years ago, and we use it all the time now in Shortform. Nearly all of our projects are actually rendered in it, if not completely made in it. And yeah, it's really opened up a lot of different techniques and ways, and it's also just very intuitive. And well, I don't know, I find it quite intuitive coming from another 3D software, and it's kind of opened up a lot more things. So all the artists have all kind of like really taken to it and enjoying it. So I think we're just going to keep on trying to use it as much as we can, really. With so I would certainly say if you're looking to get into 3D, I would say it's probably a very good program to learn, and it's free, and we use it. I know a lot of other studios are using it more now, and it may not be like the industry standard in terms of mass usage, but I definitely think it rivals the software in terms of like quality and you know, capability. So I wouldn't shy away from that. It's probably more just you know, the sort of, you know, the interface stuff that, you know, is a bit of a hurdle, but yeah, definitely.
I was just saying, me and you, Lauren, we speak about Blender quite a lot now, about when we meet people at festivals and stuff. We're like, yeah, just go and use Blender, particularly with people that want to get into animation and don't know where to start. Obviously, Blender is, you're not paying for it or any of that. So, and it does so much stuff in it. It's a technical way of saying it.
Yeah, totally. No, yeah,
we recommend it.
We know what we're talking about.
Well, I think, you know, also, I mean, I don't think, I think when we first talked about it, you know, we obviously said about the fact that it's free, but I was really pushing for it because I was like, no, you don't understand. It's better.
It's not just that. It's just better.
It's just so good. Like Maya definitely is. It's designed to be like a beast that can handle a lot of heavy stuff, and like, you know, there's certainly shortcomings with that in places with Blender, but you know, the amount of times you need to push things that far is pretty minimal. You know, certainly for short form. You know, like we've never really had issues like that, and there's been a bit of teething, you know, with pipeline and stuff, but that's all been ironed out a lot more recently. I think since like 2020, I think it's really like taken off quite a lot. So
Yeah.
I think they're building more and more tools for productions and stuff. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, it's good.
Definitely. Get on it if you haven't.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a really good time to get on it when you've graduated and you've lost the license from school and you're like, but I want to keep learning, I want to keep practicing. Blender's a good time to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And very quickly, that question was from Shriyash Pant 15. I forgot to say that before.
Thank you.
There we go. Doing my duty.
Okay, next we have, how do you juggle learning all the skill sets needed, like modeling, texturing, rigging, and directing? And that's from Zfan Art. But I suppose for you'll have done a lot of that learning on the job, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I've always kind of felt like the best way to learn software, and I know everyone learns differently, so that comes with a huge caveat of depends how you learn. But I always feel like giving myself like a mini project forces me to problem solve a lot more, because there's like a means to an end, right? Whether it's like a short GIF or a thing, whatever it is, it's like you kind of hit hurdles and then you research and then you figure it out, and you figure it out relative to your project. So you're not just following a tutorial. It's a bit like, how do those principles apply if I'm making this character or whatever it is? So, and then you kind of just go down the line, picking stuff up and learning stuff, and you're never gonna explore every aspect in every project, but then you do the next project and you learn a bit more about, other parts of the shading tool set or whatever it is. And so it's just kind of like, for me, I find that's the easiest way to sort of build up that knowledge and, and hopefully have a little something at the end of each one as well that you can kind of, look back on as like, okay, yeah, that taught me how to do that. Like, I remember when I'd used this program called TrueSpace when I was really little, and you couldn't do any like deformation. It was all like IK based stuff. But I remember the first time I had like shadows in a scene, and it was this penguin skiing down a hill, and it was just like, I got so excited. I was like, shadows. I think he was actually floating off the mountain, but it was like, yeah, shadows. So I still kind of think about that. But yeah, I think I think having a project like that is a good way to go. I also feel like the other advice I'd say is learn backwards, in that certainly if you're going from one program to another, but even if you're starting fresh, if you want to maybe build up a sort of generalist knowledge, I found that, if you start at the end of the pipeline, so let's say you're starting with like lighting and comp, then, you can source assets online, you can find things to kind of kit bash a scene together or whatever it is, and you can learn about how the lighting tools work, and how to render something out. And, you can kind of have, it's like you're almost like a finished product in a shorter time, and then you keep getting bigger and bigger. And I feel like that's quite a nice way to kind of learn a little bit about each stage without getting too discouraged. And then after that, it's like, okay, now I'm going to maybe I'll take a model, that again, I've maybe found off TurboSquid or something, and then learn about the shading tools, and then I'll like that, and then I'll render it, and then now I'm going to model my own character and then shade it, and and then maybe you'll dabble with the rigging tools, and then you can try and animate it, and it kind of feels like a nice way to sort of slowly introduce yourself to how it all works, and then again from there it's just building up that knowledge, with each project. And I really found that helpful going from Maya to Blender, because so many, especially rigging, is totally different in a lot of ways, and so I would start by basically making like the whole animation, whatever it is, all the way in Maya, and then I'd like export an Alembic, get that into Blender, and then just learn about the lighting tools and rendering tools, and then like, slowly but surely I was just swapping out each part of the pipeline, until I could just delete Maya.
Nice. It's interesting. I like that advice. Learn backwards.
Yeah.
That.
Definitely. Pick it apart.
Yeah.
Last question. It's a generalist question again. So it's from Gen Chibi, and it's top 5 things to know as a generalist. Sounds
That's
like a
really
YouTube title.
Things in the world.
It's like, go.
I feel like it's very hard, because it's also, what is your, like, I don't know, are we talking generalist as in you do like everything from beginning right through to like the comp, or are you kind of more a generalist, like staying within kind of like, character asset side of things? I think I was trying to think about this before, because I thought maybe there's like slightly annoying, but more like overarching things to be good at, rather than trying to be like UVing or good topology. I mean, those things are important, but I feel like, I could just say modeling, texturing, rigging, it's not really something. Yeah, I think like overall, I would say like understanding, like just as a general skill, like understanding like the purpose of something you're making, like what does it need to be, how does it need to function? Is it a style frame? Is it is it an asset that needs to be passed to someone else? And I think just having that understanding makes you work more efficiently. So that's, I think that's a useful skill. Time management, if you are kind of doing the whole thing, then you really need to know like when to move on from each thing, and that kind of thing. So that's quite, like what's the best approach? Certainly having like a good eye is really important. And not just in terms of like your taste and that kind of thing, but also like where do you draw the line on something? Because like I say, if you're modeling something, you're kind of like quite quickly starting to consider, what that's going to look like at the end of the process. So it's like, how far do I take the modeling before it becomes a shading problem, and then when does it become like an animation problem? And it's like, having an understanding in that way. I do think I'm really kind of conflicted by this one, but it probably is really important to learn how to work clean. Like, is it good for the pipeline? If you have to hand it off to someone, or if anyone else is going to touch the scene, it's like, yeah, you should probably learn how to work cleanly. And that, both in terms of like the scene being clean, and also maybe like, your model being clean. I mean, I am really, I know how to retopologize and how to UV, but I really like just like sculpting something, also retopologizing it, also UVing it, 3D painting it, so I don't have to think too much, and then like quickly rigging it, animate, like doing that sort of thing. But I know if someone else got that file, it'll be like, this topology is a mess. But I'm like, but again, it's that first thing where it's like, yeah, but when you look at the style frame, or you look at the animation test, when you're looking at like what's actually happening, you don't see the topology, you don't, and if it functions, it functions. But I don't know how many studios would be happy with you doing that. So that won't be the advice this time. Work clean.
Maybe on your own project you could do that.
Yeah, exactly. Think of it like a sketch. Like if it's supposed to be a loose thing, like when you have to do it properly, do it properly. Yeah, and then I think the last one as well, which is again sort of more like just a general thing, is like it's really good to always consider like render time, because it's so easy to like work a bit messy, or work, like I say, with heavy topology or massive shader, like texture files, all this sort of stuff, and then even if you're rendering it, like that's going to become a bottleneck for you. But certainly if you have to pass it to someone else, you'll be like, well, this is a bit useless, So and yeah, render time, I feel like that's something that you can be aware of like as you go each step to kind of keep things optimized. So that's kind of a good rule of thumb, really. Just make sure you're not making something with like a million subdivisions, because it's not really usable.
I think that's really good advice. Yeah, I think a lot of juniors in particular or grads wouldn't necessarily consider that. I know that wasn't a massive consideration when I was at university. So I think that's really good advice, and I think something that not everybody would necessarily think about. So render times.
Especially as well, because you sometimes get lost in like, if you're making like a part of something, you're not making the whole thing. You might think like, oh, this is fine, look, I can rotate it, everything's nice and light. But it's like, yeah, but that's going into a scene where there might be a dozen of those things and loads of other things. And if everyone thought like that, it would be a disaster. So
then nothing's going on.
Yeah.
Cool. Wonderful. I think that's everything for now.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, Dane. It was a wonderful to chat, and you've got so much helpful, useful advice, I think.
Yeah, great. So, thanks for having me.
No worries at all. Thank you.
Thank you.